In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up a Fargate-based Flask application on AWS ECS, and then I'm also going to set up a load balancer in front of it in order to help your application scale. So I'm going to make a couple assumptions in this video. The first is that you already have an image of an application that you'd like to deploy. This is the one that I set up and uploaded to ECR, which stands for Elastic Container Registry. I do have a video on that if you're trying to set that up for the first time. So I'll put that in the description section below just so that you can check it out. It just takes a couple of steps to build it and upload it and all that kind of stuff. Fairly straightforward, just probably take you 10 minutes or so. So let me just show you really quick the application that is in this image just so that it all makes sense. So just taking a look at the files we have over here, we just have an app.py and a Docker file and just some requirements that contain all of our dependencies that we need. So this is the app.py. This is actually from a project that I'm working on. Note that we just have one route that returns a index.html, just basically says hello world. And then we have a /app path, which just returns us a basic string here. And then we're running this on port 8081. And then in our Docker file, basic stuff here, just copying some stuff over, blah, blah, blah. And we're exposing port 8081. This is important because when we set up the ECS cluster, or sorry, the task definition rather, we're going to have to input the port that we want to expose. So let's go back to the console now and I'll show you how to set it all up. Okay, so here we are back in the console. So I'm in the ECR section, and the thing that we need to grab is just the URI of our image. So I'm going to just go in here and grab this URI. Probably just click that button. That's a lot easier because we're going to need this when we go ahead and set up the ECS task definition for Fargate. It's going to ask us for our image. So I'm just copying that to clipboard, and then we'll come back to that later. So I'm going to click up here and we're just going to type in ECS for Elastic Container Service. Click on this guy. And this is our first time here on this account, so we don't have anything. Just telling you a little bit about how the service works. So what we need to do first is, well, you can do this in one of many ways. You can either set up your cluster first and then set up a task definition, then set up your service, or you can set up your task definition first, then your cluster and your service. But let me just do it with the cluster first, and then hopefully we'll get to the task definition part a little later. Maybe it'll make more sense this way. Okay, so we need to create a cluster here. A cluster is just basically like a logical grouping of AWS compute resources. It's kind of a moot point in terms of Fargate because you're not really worrying about resources. So I don't really know why you have to deal with the cluster. But anyways, it is what it is. I'm just going to click on Create Cluster now. And so this is the first prompt that we need to decide on. Obviously, we're going to click on the one that says powered by AWS Fargate, and it's only going to give us some networking options. If you wanted EC2, you would pick either this one here or this one here if you're planning on using EC2 with Windows. So scrolling down here, we're just going to click on Next Step. And it's asking us here, if I scroll up a little bit for a cluster name, what am I going to call this? Demo app cluster. And it's asking us here if we want to create a VPC. Now, I recommend you do not do this if this is just your first time and you're trying to get this set up for the first time, because when you create a new VPC, it's going to require you to set up all your internet access, all your inbound and outbound rules. It's going to be a whole pain. If you just use the default VPC, which you will if you don't select this button, you're going to have automatic inbound access at the subnet level. We're still going to have to do some modifications to the security groups, but and security groups are just kind of like firewalls, if you don't know. I have a video on that if you want to check it out on my channel. And that's all that we're going to have to set up from the networking level if we use the default AWS account. So kind of went off on a tangent. We're going to skip this. We're just going to click on Create Now in the bottom right. And it was super quick. So it managed to create our cluster right away. So that was successfully created. Now we just go to View Cluster. And this is kind of the default screen here for when you want to manage your cluster. A couple different options here. We have a service that we can create. Before we do that, we need to create our task definition, which is our next tab here. So we're going to actually click on that. And yeah, so we actually can't click on this, run a new task, because we haven't defined a task. A task is kind of like a template, and you put your container image inside of the task. And you can have multiple revisions of that task based on a new container image. And it contains other things like environment variable setup, disk mounting, a bunch of other settings that you can define, port mappings, all that kind of stuff. That's all defined at the task container level. So in order to proceed, we need to go to the top left here and click on task definitions. And I'm going to click on, well, you notice here, first of all, that we don't have any. That's because we haven't created like a template yet. So go ahead and click on create a new task definition. And it's asking us what type of launch we want. And like we said, we want to do Fargate. So we're going to leave that. Going to go to next step here and task definition name. So what did I call this? Demo task definition. You got to be specific with your names here because there's a lot of slightly related things that you're creating. It's very easy to forget what you named things. But yeah, try to append them with something meaningful. Task role, you can leave this as default, but if your application needs to make calls to like DynamoDB or whatever, or something else, you need to create a role and add it here and select the one that you need. Okay, so task execution role, leaving all that default. Task memory, let's just give this something like reasonable, I guess, like 2 GB, 1 vCPU. You can kind of mess with this depending on your use case. I would say start small and then bump it up if you need more. Okay, so container definition. So this is kind of important. This is where we need to specify our Docker image and port mappings and blah, 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 blah. So you need to click on add container. And then you need to name your container. So what are we going to name this? So like I told you, this is a lot of names, right, that you need to remember. So demo container, or demo app container rather. Okay, and then if you still have it on your clipboard, go ahead and paste in your image into this guy here. And it's going to have your, actually do you need that? I think you do, right? It's saying image : tag. I would assume you do, but you never know. We're just going to leave that as default. Memory limits, let's say that's, what did we say it was? 1024? Or no, I said 2048. So we're just going to set 2048 there. Port mapping. So this is important. The port that we set in our Docker application, remember I told you it was port 8081. I exposed that port, and that's the port that the Flask app is running on. So you need to put that in here. Whatever port that you want, that you were running your container on, that needs to be in this box. So make sure that you do that. Advanced stuff, I'm actually just going to minimize that so it doesn't confuse you. But essentially all you need to know is the stuff in that box is for more flexible settings, and people who know what they want will click on this and modify the settings. So that's all we need in this screen. I'm just going to go ahead and click on add, and it's just going to create a little instance here. And I think that's all we need for this screen. Volumes, if you want to add volumes. Yeah, we're just going to go ahead and click on create. So that was super fast and easy. So we click on this big blue button here to view the definition. And then this is just showing us like a summary of everything that we just set up, which isn't very interesting because I just talked about that. So now we can go to the clusters section. Now, this is the cluster that I just made, so I can click on that cluster. And what we can do now is we can go ahead and start clicking on like create the service. But when you do create the service, you need to specify that load balancer. So like we haven't created the load balancer yet, so it makes more sense to go do that thing first. So let's just head over there and do that. I'm just going to duplicate this tab, and then we are going to go over to, oddly enough, load balancers are in the EC2 section. So just type in EC2. You're going to scroll down here on the left, or just Control F, and you want to click on load balancers. So we're going to be working with two things here. The first one is a load balancer to distribute your traffic across different instances. Second is a target group. So the load balancer is responsible for kind of being the entry point. It's going to be receiving the initial traffic, but the load balancer needs to know like, where do I send this traffic to? So that's what the target group is responsible for. And the target group in turn will point to our Fargate instances. So like this all makes sense when I walk you through this whole thing here. So first of all, we are in the load balancer section. So let's go ahead and click on create a load balancer. For this, we are going to set up a HTTP, HTTPS, or application load balancer. Going to click on create there. And you can name this whatever you want. Let's call this demo app LB. LB for load balancer. It's going to be internet facing. If you want to make something internal that, you're building an internal service, that you would select internal here. But we are not doing that. We are going to leave HTTP as defaults here with port 80. Do note that if you do want HTTPS, then you need to deal with certificates and all that. So if you wanted to do that, you would just go like this and then, port 443, whatever you want. But I don't want to deal with certificates, and this is just a demo. So that's a whole different process that you're going to have to deal with. So let's keep on moving. We want to do availability zones. When your AWS default account, you have a whole bunch of options here for availability zones within your VPC. So let's just click on like 1A and 1B. I don't think we need it in all of these. You actually need 2 at a minimum. You can't click 1. I tried that earlier and it broke. So don't try to do that. Add-on services, this is just a optimization. We don't need that. So let's go to the bottom right now and click on the gray button, configure security settings. So now it's giving us a warning saying that you can improve your load balancer security. It's not using any secure listener. This is because we didn't select HTTPS, so it is complaining. Again, we're not going to do this in this demo. Clicking on next now. I don't want to select an existing security group because I have like no idea what this thing has. So I'm going to go ahead and click on create a new security group. I'm going to name this, this is our load balancer or demo app LB security group. It's important to name this stuff because we're going to have to modify some of these rules later, and it's important that you remember what's what. So name them with a good name that actually means something. Going to put that into the description section as well. What are we seeing here? So this security group has custom TCP on port 80. Yeah, so it's capable of receiving traffic on port 80, and the request can originate from IPv4 and IPv6 public internet. So that is exactly what we want. This load balancer is going to take traffic on port 80, and it's going to forward traffic to port 8081 in our Fargate app. So that's kind of what's coming next, but just to give you a quick preview. Now we want to click on next to configure routing. This is where we're going to specify some more details. So target group, we're going to create a new one here. And so demo app targets group. And okay, so this is something that I need to tell you about because I spent like 3 hours trying to figure out why this whole thing wasn't working. And it turned out because I didn't select IP as a setting here. For some silly reason, you need to select IP and not instance. I guess it kind of makes sense because a Fargate app it's not an instance of anything, right? It's just like a serverless cloud compute resource. So I guess it makes more sense to say IP here. For whatever reason, like there's no warnings, there's no like reasonable errors. I just was fumbling around for like 3 hours trying to figure this out. So make sure you click IP here or else you're going to have a bad time. Okay, so protocol, we are on HTTP, and so we want to forward now to port 8081. That's the port that my Docker app exposed. We're going to leave health checks just on the root path. That's fine. There's some advanced stuff here that I'm not going to dwell on. We're just going to go to the bottom right and click on register targets now. We don't have anything to register right now because there's no instances of our Fargate applications running yet. So this will make sense later. We're going to come back to this page. I'm going to leave it open actually. I'm going to click on review in the bottom right. It's just going to tell us a summary of everything that we did just at a quick glance. Port 80 internet facing, that's good. And port 8081 for the target group. Perfect. Go ahead and click on create in the bottom right now. This will take a few minutes actually, although the screen says it's done right away. You're going to see that it's stuck in provisioning state for quite a bit. And you do need to wait until this succeeds because if you move on to the next step, which is to create the AWS service, it won't show up there until this is complete. That's another thing that screwed me over and I wasted some time trying to figure out why it wasn't showing up on the ECS screen because it wasn't provisioned. So I'm just going to fast forward this really quick and let you know when it's all done. All right, guys, took a few minutes. This thing is finally in active state. Going to leave this tab open because we're going to come back here to do some security group stuff. We're going back to the ECS section now. Make sure that you click on the refresh button here. I find that I don't know why, the UI is a little bit wonky and sometimes you need to refresh it in order for it to correctly reflect the new state. So we're back in our demo app cluster. So we're finally ready to create our service. So I'm going to go ahead and click on create now. And it's asking us some configuration questions. Obviously, we want to select Fargate here. And it's asking us for the task definition. If you have multiple here, it's going to give you all those options. Since I only have one, it's only showing me one. So make sure you select the right one for you and the version that it's for. We're going to run in this cluster, obviously, because I clicked on this cluster. I don't even know why it's asking that. What is this thing called? Demo app service. See what I mean with the names? It's ridiculous. Now let's say replica's fine, number of tasks. So this is how many instances of Fargate you want up at all times. So it's going to maintain a minimum of this. So if you set this to like 50, it's always going to have 50 on. So make sure that you know what you're doing here. You can use a auto scaling policy, a more advanced thing to kind of bring it up and down dynamically based on a metric. That's a different thing. But this is basically just asking you like, what's the min? So make sure that you select that as a reasonable number. Deployments, this is not worth talking about right now. This is all not worth talking about. Okay, so go ahead and click on next step in the bottom right. Please choose a VPC. Did I not? Oh, okay. Yeah, so we want to pick our default VPC, and this is my default VPC. Subnets, make sure you click the same ones that you created that load balancer for. Mine was A and B, A and 1B. I don't think this matters, but I'm not 100% sure because I changed a bunch of things and something started working. But that's never a good thing to say, but that's basically what happened. So just keep that in mind. If something doesn't work, try to always change this and see if it helps. Anyways, we're using this security group. That is fine. Auto assign public IP. We're going to keep that as enabled. But for this application, we're exposing the app through the load balancer. So that's really not required, but I'm just going to leave it enabled for now. Scrolling down, so health check, that's fine. Okay, so here we go with the load balancer stuff, the stuff that I spent hours on trying to figure out. So what you need to do here is, first of all, obviously click on application load balancer. And so it's going to pre-select the load balancer that we created in the prior step. And then it's going to ask us for this container that we want to load balance. So like this, you actually need to click this button. This looks like you've already done everything you need to do. That's not true. It's actually false. You need to click add to load balancer. And it's going to ask you a whole bunch of things. And just fill in port 80 for HTTP. That's what the thing is listening on, the load balancer. And the target group, so you should see what the target group that you just created in the previous step. If you don't see this here, it means that when you were creating the was it the target group or the load balancer, you selected instance instead of IP. That I took a moment there to kind of call that out. So if you don't see it in this list, that's probably the reason. So go and double check that if you run into that problem. So everything else is default, default, default. That's good. Let's go to next. And service auto scaling. Yeah, this is the option I was talking about earlier where you can play with auto scaling to bring up the number of tasks in the service. But I'm not going to do that for this. Okay, so next step, it's just asking us to confirm everything. Everything's looking good. Click on create service now. So it's going to go and do some wacky things, go and create stuff for you. And when it's it's already all done. So that's perfect. And then you can create a code pipeline to automatically like integrate with Git. And then whenever a new version is published, you can rebuild the image and then create a whole deployment strategy there. Pretty cool. Maybe it's worth checking out another video. But for this, we're going to go in the bottom right, click on View Service. So what is going to happen now is that you're going to see the tasks come up here. Now, you're not done because this is going to fail, actually, and I'll tell you exactly why it's going to fail. And just keeping an eye here. Yeah, so it's going to running. It doesn't fail right away, but what's going to eventually happen is that the load balancer is going to try and basically do health checks by pinging these instances and seeing if it can hit them on port 8081. And it's going to fail because it doesn't have network connectivity allowing this to happen. So we need to do two things. We need to go to our load balancer. Actually, you know what? Let me just draw this out really quick because this is like confusing as heck. So I got my pen here. Yeah, okay, so that's good. Just that. Okay, so we have like internet, right? Internet. Sorry, it's a little bit ugly there. And then we have like our load balancer here, right? That's in the middle. And then we have like our Fargate apps, and those will be circles. And we just have two over here. And these are running on port 8081. Now, what's happening is that we need to, first of all, let me get a different color for this actually. Where's yellow? Yellow's good. So first of all, we need to open up the load balancer to the HTTP port, which is port 80 from the public internet. Okay, so that's the first thing we need to do. Second thing we need to do is that we need to give our Fargate tasks the connectivity via security group to the load balancer. So we need this to be set up. And by default, it's not. So when the load balancer is trying to do its health checks to say, hey, is there anyone in this target group that's actually listening if I get requests? The answer is gonna keep on being no. And so it's gonna just communicate this to ECS, and it's gonna shut down an instance. It's gonna recycle them over and over again. You're gonna see this go from like running to stops to draining. It's just like a super confusing nightmare of things where you don't really know what's happening. And to make it worse, the logs are completely useless. So, take it from my pain that you need to do this. And let's actually see if it changed. Nah, it's still just running. Anyways, but we can prove it by going to our EC2, back to our load balancer, and just trying to hit the public DNS. So here it is. If we go to, well, I'm back at load balancer, by the way, and you just click on this guy here. And I guess I can use this tab. You just paste that in there. On port 80, it should forward to our application, to our Fargate application. So I'm not sure which it's failing on. It's probably failing on the fact that it can't connect to it can't be connected to from the public internet. But see, okay, we got a gateway timed out. And actually, interestingly, if you go to, can you expand this section? Yeah, you can expand that. You go to monitoring. And there I was, I just made that request. And you should see 503. Well, I don't think it's refreshed yet, but this thing will show you like all the errors that you actually get, but I think it collects metrics like once every minute or so. Let me just try it one more time. If it's not there, then forget it. Yeah, okay, so let's just skip that. We'll come back here later and maybe check on it then. Anyways, so what we need to do here is make this thing accessible from the public internet. So actually, I need to expand this again. How silly of me. So description, and let me make it bigger. And we need to find the security group. Okay, so this is the security group. So we need to modify this guy. You can click on either of these things. I'm just going to click on this. And whoa, what? Okay, that was confusing. When you have this enlarged, it takes over the screen very easily. So this is our security group. So what we want to do now is modify our inbound rules. So we actually do want to expand this. So go to inbound rules here. And actually, you know what? This one is already set up correctly. So it's already got access to the public internet. So this, I think it was default set up when you create the security group. It just assumes that you're listening on port 80 because that's what we set up the port forwarding on. So that's all good. Now, what I want you to do is take note of the name here. I'm actually going to copy this thing to my clipboard because you're going to have to remember it later. So take note of that name. And what we want to do now is actually go into the security group section. We need to do that second half of this equation, which is making sure that the security group for the Fargate application has the permission to receive connections from the load balancer. Okay. And so that's what we need to set up. So this was the one that I was just on, and I believe this is the one for my application, but I'm not 100% sure. There's an easy way to check that. And if we just go back to ECS, I believe this is in details. There it is. So, okay. So the security group of our Fargate cluster is this. This is actually a much better way of doing it. Just come here and click on this. It takes away all the ambiguity. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to bring up another window to make things extra confusing. Make this bigger so you all can see. Okay, so now what we need to do is give this guy permission to receive inbound connection requests from the load balancer, okay? And so open this again, okay? Inbound rules. And right now, this thing is only receiving traffic on port 80. Okay, and it's open to the public internet. So remember when I said that it was exposed to the public internet? And let me actually just demonstrate this to you. I'm going to go back to ECS. We're going to go to cluster and tasks, I think it is. How do we get to the IP addresses? No, it's not here. in details, tasks. Oh, you see, it's going up and down right now. So that's exactly what I was talking about. It's failing the health check. So it's freaking out and like saying, oh, I don't know what to do. I need to put up new instances. So the target groups are controlling that. Maybe that's why the IP is not available right now, because it's like going ballistic. Oh, here it is. But now I don't know if like this thing is still provisioning, if this is going to fail for a different reason, but let's just try it. And what did this should maybe do something. Yeah, so it's provisioning right now, but you notice we didn't get a timeout this time. We just got a refusal to connect, which is an improvement, but probably not a good example because this was getting all messed up. So let's just try that. Ooh, that was the other tab. So let's try that again. Yeah, still not working. So that's fine. Let's go and finish this up with the load balancer. Let me just close all this and let's just do all that again, because now it's extra confusing. So going back to clusters, in the cluster, in the service tells us security group, click on the security group. Now go to inbound rules. Okay, now we need to create a new inbound rule. And so I'm going to say all traffic, all TCP. And I want the source, that's what this part is asking you for here, to be a particular person or thing. So a security group in this case, which is, it's this one. I'm just going to paste it up here. Oh no, I lost it. I lost my security group of the load balancer. Maybe it'll have the alias in it here. Yes, good thing I did. See, I told you it pays to name these things intelligently. So this is the security group for my load balancer. So I'm going to click on that. And now we're saying like, okay, load balancer is allowed to talk to ECS. So the health checks will start succeeding after this. So this won't happen instantly because the health checks occur like every 30 seconds or something. But we're going to basically wait a minute or two and then try and hit this website again and see if it all works. Okay, so let's just go over and get that URL again because I accidentally closed the tab and I lost it. So back to EC2, to load balancers. And before we do that, let's just double check to see if we got that timeout that we were talking about. Oh, so you see some traffic because when we were trying to hit it before, it wasn't working, but you do get some hits there. And yeah, so we got some active connection counts. We got a whole bunch of metrics here, which are pretty interesting. So go check those out if you have the time. But all I want is the public DNS. So this is the DNS right here, which is our website. And let's just open up another tab and give this whole thing a whirl. And there you go. So we got our root path here, which is serving up our index.html. If I just do /app, it should be another path. And did that work? There we go. Hello from app. So perfect. Everything worked. I'll leave the code in the description section of this video and a link to a couple other videos that I think you may find helpful. If you enjoyed this, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.